Greetings, friends. We're the Coldrock brothers, Sal and Ed. I'm Sal. Today we want to discuss werewolf movies. So, what are our favorite werewolf movies, and why? So we have a lot to choose from. Some of my favorites are The Howling. That is probably my favorite of all time. You had American Werewolf in London, and then Dog Soldiers, and most recently, a more recent film was Gingersnaps. Now, the thing I really liked, and I'll concentrate more on the Howling because, like I said, that to me has many elements that a lot of the horror movies, a lot of the werewolf movies that came after did not. First of all, at the time, groundbreaking special effects, which I was always been a fan of. It had a character. I remember the character's name was Eddie, and the thing that made that werewolf unique is that he wasn't tortured at all by being a werewolf. He actually embraced it in a very scary, demonic way. He bragged about it. I remember he stalks the Karen, I believe her name's Karen White, the Dee Wallace character, and that one scene where he's basically says, "I want to show you a piece of my mind." And he was on right there, right then and there, is transforms into a werewolf, and like I said, he embraces it.
Ed here. I remember that scene was funny when he is telling the main character, her name is Karen White. He says, "I'm gonna give you a piece of my mind," and then he literally tears out a chunk of his brain and he hands it to her. So this guy was sick and twisted.
Yeah.
He enjoyed being a werewolf, and he enjoyed tormenting people.
Mm-hmm.
He was sadistic. And that was unique, right? Because usually in the werewolf mythology, the afflicted does not like it.
No.
And often they're very tormented by it.
Yeah, beginning with Lon Chaney Jr., right? The first, the most...
The Wolfman.
Yeah, the original Wolfman. Yeah, so that was a very unique aspect of this film. The look and feel, even though this is a 1980s movie, it still had that 70s look. It was very dark. The characters looked very plain. It had that aspect to it too.
So the characters again were cast in a way that their look fit the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go out looking for supermodels to hire to play Karen White.
Definitely not.
At the end of the day, it's a little bit of a distraction when you have characters that are just so beautiful in a horror movie, which is intended to be dark, intended to be creepy, intended to be disturbing, and you're being distracted by beautiful people who are anything but scary and disturbing, right?
That's right. And it's. I mean, the filmmakers have many reasons for doing that, right? But here at Coldrock, we want to remain true to the essence of horror and good story, which is basically, like Ed says, the character is nothing more than basically a piece of the entire puzzle. And in order for that puzzle piece to fit, as was with the 70s and early 80s, you had these characters that fit the part. They were not supermodels. They were there to play the part that they were supposed to play. For example, the Eddie character. I'm sure if they were to ever remake the Howling today, Eddie would probably be a former GQ model, right? And I don't know how palatable that would be.
Right. You know, Eddie was. I think he fit the part. I think when he was in his human form, there was something wolf-like about him. Huh? There was something animalistic about him, huh?
Yeah, he wasn't a player. Let's just say that. Maybe after the film was made, but no, he definitely wasn't a ladies' man.
Right, probably. Well, in terms of his looks, you know, there's something very rustic, very animalistic about him, right? And it fit the part beautifully.
Yeah.
Right. So Sal mentioned that his favorite werewolf movie is The Howling. I'm a little torn. I've got several that are my favorite. Obviously, I love The Howling. I also really love Silver Bullet.
Yep.
And Silver Bullet at the end, it was a drama, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a drama, and it was dark, it was dreary. It had a real story there. It was a coming of age story. It was about, a brother and sister who had trouble getting along, and they got through that horrific experience. They became much closer, right?
Right. The thing that I remember most about this film was that it was one of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's one of the few werewolf movies that has a twist at the end. Because remember when it's revealed who the werewolf is, I was shocked. I remember being shocked to find out that it was actually the priest.
It was the priest, and actually, I think we found out it was the priest who was the werewolf somewhere about the middle, because if you recall, the main character, the kid, had been given fireworks for his birthday, and he went out into the wilderness. No, he went to a secluded bridge or something.
That's right.
To burn the fireworks, to light the fireworks, and the werewolf shows up, and he uses the one of the rockets as a weapon against the werewolf to escape, and the rocket goes into the werewolf's eye. This is like somewhere in the middle.
That's right.
And next time we see the priest, he has an eye patch. So somewhere in the middle, we knew it was the priest, and the kids actually began sort of hunting the priest, not hunting him, but sort of, I don't know, maybe harassing the priest in a way, trying to call him out.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the priest comes after them, as in werewolf form. But I remember watching that movie as a kid. It just brings back good memories. It's just a nice little cute little drama with the werewolf running around.
It is.
And nothing gory, nothing over the top. It's totally palatable. I wouldn't say it's a family movie, but
no, definitely not.
Maybe at the Coldrock household.
yeah.
But yeah, it brings back good memories. Another movie that I really like. I think Sal mentioned Gingersnaps. That was a really good one. That was a really good, a nice good step in the evolution of the werewolf genre.
It was. I like the way it took this whole. It had this underlying theme of the menstruation aspect of females, right? And I guess not that I would know about it, but the awkwardness, the pain, all that stuff that they would go through with that, and I guess, and I'm just guessing here, but that was an underlying theme. And it's funny because if you think about it, it's kind of like an exaggerated play on that whole process that happens to women, right? And the thing with this movie though that was interesting was the characters were interesting. They were all into the goth and the death. You remember the two friends,
the two sisters.
The two sisters. They like to recreate death scenes. I found that funny, but also getting in, and this kind of goes back to a previous video we speak about, is the look of the werewolves. The Gingersnaps werewolf looked really kind of very disturbing in a sense, because it had this, if you remember, it had this really big head. It looked very pit bull like. It had its pulled eyes, back, and the ears that were kind of tight, like really close to its head. That's one thing that I've always been fascinated about is when you get kind of like when we talked previously about the exorcism. When you see an exorcist movie, it's all going to come down to the scene of the exorcism. And for the werewolf films, it usually in the past has come down to the transformation scene, right? And there's a lot riding on that, the execution of that, and how does the werewolf look? How many different ways can you show that? And with Coldrock, I think we're taking a really unique step in that direction.
Right, there are all kinds of werewolves, all kinds of approaches the various movies have taken to the werewolf. I know in Silver Bullet, the werewolf looked like a bipedal dog, kind of.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that's my favorite looking werewolf, that's for sure.
Right. And then in The Howling, it was a very furry bipedal wolf, I would say,
Basically
right?
a bipedal wolf, yeah.
Right. And then in American Werewolf in London, it was a quadrupedal, gorilla-like
Yeah.
werewolf, right? A
Yeah.
wolf.
The interesting thing about that werewolf is that if you look at it closely, it had long human-like arms still, and that's the disturbing imagery that I like, right? And the hind legs were very very large, like overly large, which is the case with the real wolf. That's what they use to hunt down those animals that they eat. So I found that a really interesting combination of the human body along with the wolf body.
And then in The Dog Soldiers, which is one of my favorite movies, you have that bipedal werewolf. The body is very human-like, but then the head literally is a giant wolf head. And it's a really tall werewolf, but it's very unique. So it seems every movie has its sort of picks to and commits to a particular look when it comes to the werewolf.
And speaking of transformation scenes, I still think that the American Werewolf in London transformation scene is the greatest of all time. And why? Well, you got Rick Baker that did all the special effects, a disciple of Dick Smith. And as we know, that Rick Baker was an expert in ape-like figures. He did some of the some previous movies. I believe he did the one about I think he did Gorillas in the Mist. Those some of those apes were not actually real, believe it or not. But the thing that was pioneering with the American Werewolf in London in that respect was that was the first film in which a transformation occurred in full bright light. If you remember, you see everything, right? And that was amazing. And again, I like the look of the wolf. It was believable. And in this sense, it's just the viewer viewing this guy transforming. There is no woman sitting there waiting for him to transform. So that still goes down as probably the best transformation scene in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And some movies have no transformation scene, like the Dog Soldiers. To me, the Dog Soldiers is reminiscent of the movie Predator, except instead of a predator alien, you have the werewolves. And the werewolves are chasing the soldiers through the wilderness, and eventually the soldiers have to hunker down at a cabin and fight for their lives the entire night. Action. It was an action horror movie. Whereas Silver Bullet was a drama. Gingersnaps was sort of like a dramedy, right?
It was kind of like a dark dramedy kind. Yeah.
A dark comedy.
A dark comedy. There you go.
Right, and The Howling was straight horror, I think, and The Dog Soldiers was an action movie basically,
mm-hmm.
an action horror movie. So you see a melding of genres there a little bit, and as with most horror movies. As with most action movies, it just really got really fast-paced and really, I would say, a little bit over the top.
Mm-hmm.
That's why my biggest complaint with the Dog Soldiers, it was just, it was a really fun action movie, and to me, it just ceased being a horror movie.
Yeah, I agree. I lost that probably like in the first 30 minutes of it. It was just an action film at that point.
Yeah, it was an action film. Though I did enjoy it. I thought it was a great entry into the horror genre, into the werewolf subgenre. And I think we've mentioned this in previous videos, how we've seen a lot more evolution in the vampire and zombie subgenres than we have seen in the werewolf subgenre. And we think that's mainly due to the limitation in the werewolf mythology itself. During the full moon, the werewolf becomes a complete animal, a complete werewolf, a fully transformed, and there's just not much depth there. It's just on a rampage, on a killing spree. And in our story, Siren Moon, we changed the mythology to make the werewolf more interesting, all while remaining true to the core mythological elements, such as the moon. The moon is relevant. But what's to say that, through the various phases of the moon, the transformation can't correspond to the level of the phase of the moon. You know, if you have a quarter moon, let's have a quarter transformation. A half moon, half transformation. And in those partial transformations, the werewolf will still have its human faculties to a certain extent. You know, quarter werewolf during the quarter moon and 3/4 human. During the half moon, half werewolf, half human. So that allows for a little bit of a more faceted werewolf. You know, a little more drama, something new and fresh. So that's one of the things we changed in Siren Moon. Also in mythology, you'll notice that often these mythological creatures must be killed, you know, by decapitation. Medusa could only be killed by decapitation. Vampires, I know you have the stake through the heart, but often it's the stake through the heart and decapitation.
Yeah, same with zombies, right?
Zombies, decapitation, right? So likewise, we believe that mythological creatures typically must be destroyed by decapitation, and with the werewolf, we think it can only be done with the silver sword. So you decapitate a werewolf with a silver sword, and silver bullets are useful, but we believe if you shoot a werewolf with the silver bullet, it's much like shooting a person with a BB gun. It's going to sting, and the person might step back, but it's still going to be coming after you. So that's just a glimpse of how we changed the werewolf mythology. And as Sal and I mentioned, you know, we're very much inspired by the 70s, how the parts must definitely fit the whole. We love movies that bring drama. They bring multi-dimensional characters. Likewise, our stories are dramas. At the same time, they have horror elements, and they can move at a neck-breaking speed. You know, we hugely respect contemporary pacing in movies, where the movie has to move, because, you know, audiences today don't tolerate, you know, your horror movie being a drama for the first half. So we're trying to embody the best of all worlds at Coldrock and bring the best possible story we can bring in a fresh manner. And we want to reinvent the werewolf genre. We believe Siren Moon does that. And we're looking forward to bringing to everyone the next step in the evolution of the werewolf genre in Siren Moon. This is the Coldrock Brothers. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.